Hi everyone, I want to talk to you about May's book, which was Earth Power by Scott Cunningham. It was very interesting. We had a lot to talk about and also not a lot at the same time because once you get to past the elements of magic, which is part two, so this far into the book, it's basically just spells from here on out. So I'll talk to you about the basics of what we talked about so that if you didn't get a chance to come to book club, you can be part of the conversation. Feel free to comment below on what your thoughts are. Let's dig in. So Earth Power is a book that is all about earth magic. So using the elements with magic and what magic is and more. So I'm curious what your definition of magic is. And I can read you their definition in here. We all agreed that the definition of natural magic was pretty spot on for this book. But feel free to comment below if you disagree or if you have a different definition that you want to include in the conversation. But basically, he said, natural magic, rather the magic of nature, is an uncomplicated, direct branch of the magical arts, one derived from eons of experimentation by peoples scattered over the globe. It is perhaps a response to the limitless power of nature, the power visible to the ever-changing seasons, the blossoming of a bud, the birth of young. Then he goes on, and he talks about symbolism and magic as a sort of shorthand, which I think is interesting and how I think of symbolism with magic. And then he brings up 3 points of what nature magic is. Natural magic is direct and to the point. The forces of nature empower magic, not demons and imps or like Satan or fallen angels. Nature is the universe itself, not only its powers but also its manifestations. And then we started talking about manifesting positivity and being present when we manifest things, and how that's important. He says, earth magic is not a simple solution to the world's problems, but it can bring order into our lives, and that's a good start. He talks about how in magical thought, the human body is the microcosm or small representation of the earth, and the earth is the macrocosm. And magic is useful in affecting such changes in our lives and therefore of the earth itself, because we're a microcosm of the earth. Then the third point he has is that the goal of all magic, occult paths, and mystical religions is the perfection of self, which I don't like the word perfect because that is a lie and nothing can ever be perfect. Everything is gray, basically. There is no black and white, in my opinion. That's a black and white statement, but you know what I mean, hopefully. So what I would say personally is, instead of saying the goal of all magic and mystical religions is the perfection of self, I would say is the empowerment of the self. Because you're never going to be perfect, but you can definitely feel empowered. And so those are the things to look for in magic, is that it's direct and to the point, it's the universe itself, and that it's empowerment of the self. In chapter 2, he talks about how the magic is, or nature are the tools necessary for magic, such as stones, trees, rivers, leaves, plants, mirrors, candles, and cords, which he notes mirrors are a man-made thing, but we use it in natural magic. Because you can use like a lake as a mirror too, so in a way, you know. And so he says, obviously, planting a stone in the ground, holding a leaf, or drawing a picture of an automobile in and of themselves do nothing. It is when such actions are performed in an emotionally charged state that changes are wrought and magic is truly done. That's a cat right there. Hi, kitty cat. In order for magic to happen, there are 3 necessities, according to Scott Cunningham. Let's see. He says The need is simple. You wake up one morning with a splitting headache and you can't get rid of it. Therefore, you need to get rid of the headache. That's an example. I put need versus desire as need being like food and a desire being like a whim that you have or something. Like, I want to throw a pirate karaoke party for my birthday. I need to eat some food today. There's a difference. And there's a difference in magic too. Also, when looking at magic and looking at emotions, the emotion is clear. So if you need a job, for example, but you're not emotionally involved in the seeking of employment, worried, anxious, fretting, etc., all the spells in the world is not going to bring you a job if you're just sitting on your butt doing nothing. Magic is all about empowering you to do what you need to do. And so in his case, he's saying that your emotions need to be aligned with your goals. In my opinion, feel free to disagree in the comments below. He says the knowledge constitutes the body of magical lore. In other words, a spell or ritual or the basic theories behind them, which allow you to make your own. A spell or ritual is simple one way of doing something. It's just one way. And there's multiple ways to do something. Just like there's like 100 herbs that are for protection, there's like 100 spells that are for protection and different things you can do for protection. The basic principles are easy, and we will be discussing this throughout the book, which will be later, and we may not get to it in this conversation. He says many people approach magic with suspicion, ready to believe, but unable to do so without proof. This is healthy. Unlike in some religions where you're supposed to have faith and just assume that whatever is being presented to you is accurate, in magic we want to have a healthy I'm trying to think of the right word. A healthy questioning of things. We want to keep our wits about us. But we also can believe in the fantastical. The next thing he talks about is magical morality, which if you had to define morality within magic, I wonder how would you define it? I know in book club we talked about intent being positive and the need for it to be positive. And if you have good intent, then good things will happen, etc., etc. And he talks about morality in the spiritual sense. Magic should be worked for positive effects, never for negative effects. The manipulation of power to cause illness, pain, death, to destroy, steal, or otherwise harm another person's property, or to control other people is negative magic. Instead of black magic or dark magic, he calls it negative magic, which I really like. Because like then we don't have to use like coded words, but that includes a spell to force someone to fall in love with you or someone else, force someone to have sex with you, obviously not a good thing, breaking up a marriage or a romance, changing another person's mind, or forcing a person to do something they don't want to do. Those are all looked at as negative uses of magic and don't serve your higher purpose, higher self, don't empower you, and they harm someone else. And so according to Earth Power book, maybe not the best plan to do those things. He does say like by all means go forward and do it if you want, to each their own, but like that's on you. And so just take that too with a grain of salt. There is a magical principle that when you put into what you put into magic is exactly what you will receive. If you perform beneficial magic, you shall receive beneficial back. The negative magician, however, shall receive only negativity, and eventually it will destroy its wielder. My question for the group and you is the age-old question of, well, if you're a good person, why do good things happen to you? And that would be if you're a good witch or you do magic with good intention, why would you come down with negative things? And I don't have an answer to that question, but it is something that popped up when I was reading the book. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Ultimately, we talked about how you just need to find what's right for you, which is what we always come back to. Just do what's right for you. And that's all that really matters. Magic for the self and magic for others. We talked about both. Magic for the self. Only if you're healthy, happy, and financially sound can you help others. Just as you must love yourself before you can expect others to love you. This was written in 1983, which I thought was fascinating, that like this level of self-awareness and self-love was around in the 80s by I think he's a cisgendered white male. I could be totally wrong on the cisgender part. I'm making an assumption there. I could be totally wrong. But yeah, is there a picture of him? Yeah, he's a white male. But anyways, so I thought that was really interesting. And then so then it leads into talking about magic for the self versus doing magic for other people. And the question is, can you do magic for other people? Of course you can. Should you is the better question to ask. And that is really up to each individual. I have my own thoughts. I know in the group we talked about how it was maybe more important to use the whole teach a man to fish analogy. And if you teach someone how to do the magic for themselves, it's better for them to do it than if you do it for them. But then if you have like a 4-year-old and you're trying to cut ties with an abusive ex of yours that has control over the 4-year-old, I mean, like, you probably want to do that magic. So like, take everything with a little bit of salt. Get that sea salt in for protection or whatever. And so he says that magic that aids you but harms another should be avoided, for it is not in keeping with magical morality. So I liked the idea of replacing the word magic with self-love and saying self-love that aids you but harms others should be avoided, for it is not in keeping with magical morality. So if you're doing magic or if you're doing things that are harming you or harming others, that's not really in alignment with the general magical philosophy that are at play here. And something that could be harmful to you could be as simple as like, you shouldn't be smoking cigarettes, Lauren. They're bad for you, Lauren, but you still do it. And so how do I switch it up so that I can start being more healthy towards myself and more moral towards myself and stop smoking cigarettes, for example? I used a cord cutting this last week that we did a cord cutting to do that. And my cigarette smoking has cut in half to almost none. And I'm like really stoked about that. But yeah, that's just an example of doing something that's harmful to yourself, going off addiction with cigarettes. You could also talk about addiction to sugar could be harmful to yourself, or literal self-harm could be obviously harmful to yourself, or over shopping, overspending can be harmful to yourself. These are all self-care activities that can be taken to the extreme to be harmful, or they can be useful depending on how you utilize them. And so with magic, you could perform magic that is helpful to yourself, like a cord cutting to get rid of your connection with your ex or something, or with your anxiety or whatever. But the minute that you do a cord cutting because you like this guy and you want to get rid of his wife or whatever from him, like that's not gonna result in anything positive, most likely. And that's where you get into the dark magic, I guess, in a way. Just the immoral magic. I don't want to say immoral, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. And the magic for others, you will have to make a decision whether or not to do magic for them. And this decision must be based on a few factors. One hard and fast rule. If it feels good, do it. If not, don't. Pretty simple. I think we talked enough about that. Let's see. Oh, the other thing about doing magic for others is you don't have the full story. You only have what that person has told you, and they may not have told you the full story or know the full story themselves. So if you do magic for someone else, you may not really know what your intention is going into, and therefore you might have like negative side effects that you don't want. And so that's another reason to hold off on doing magic for other people. He talks about divination. He talks about a word of caution with divination. When you use to look into the future, outlines possible events. If you don't like what you see, take action to change your life before the future becomes the present. So I think that's really empowering. And that's all the basics of magic. Let's see if there's anything else that I want to point out. He talks about symbolism a lot. It's really interesting. He goes into this in the book. He goes into the elements and zodiac signs, which I thought was really interesting. So I'll save that for you to read because it's really fascinating. He did talk about in concentration, how important concentration is. And I was pointing out that, you know, a lot of people in our group have ADHD or some other type of thing like that. And so, like, how do you do magic differently when you have ADHD? And an example that was given to me was there's a lot more movement that happens when people with ADHD, where they're moving around or humming or whatever to ground instead of sitting still and having to do meditation that way. So that might be an example for you if you have trouble with concentration. The other thing is just to let your brain go. Just let your brain do all the thoughts if you can't focus and let it be unfocused. If you're fighting it, it's going to be a lot harder than if you let it go. And then like eventually you'll be able to come to a place where you can focus, is what I was told by people who have these issues. Otherwise, I highly recommend reading through this book. I think it took me a day to read. Like it didn't take me long at all. And has a bunch of cute little spells. Cute. I just saw a love spell and I had a little heart by it, so I said cute. But like, you know, normal spells. And it talks about air magic, and it talks about the northeast, southwest winds, which I thought was really interesting. And there's like associations and symbolism with those different directions as well. If you want to know more about that, you can comment in the video and we can talk about it. But like, for example, I know when you're setting up an altar, if you're setting one up for nature and you've got north is this way for me, is where you have earth represented. South is fire. West is water, and east is air. And so if you set up a little altar, you can have like a little stone, a lighter, a cup, and a feather. And then you have a little altar for earth. But yeah, that's the book. I hope you enjoyed it. If you read it this month, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. And next month is Sigils for My Soul, or this month, by Julia Marie. She is a author in Springfield, Missouri, and Jefferson City, Missouri. And we are very excited to support her and to read her book. So look in the beginning to middle of July for my recap of the June book. We'll be meeting on June, what day? Let me see. June 21st at the Abundant Lotus at 6 p.m. for in-person book club. That's in Florissant, Missouri. And we'll have online book club virtual on the 23rd. To find details for the 23rd, go to the Facebook group, STL Witches, and look at the events tab, and you'll see that we have a June in-person event and we have a June online event for book club. So that's all I got. I hope you all are having a great day. Peace out.